happened to notice a update on Savannah Guthrie's mom, Nancy Guthrie, and the brother that we were speaking about this morning, Cameron Guthrie, who is a retired F-16 pilot here in Vermont, speaks up on the kidnapping of his mom. So this clip altogether is about 15 minutes long. It's a very brief intro, very brief few sentences from Cameron, and then they go into a little bit about this ransom note. So I'd kind of like to review that with you if you haven't seen it. And some things are standing out to me that they're commenting on, and I'm not necessarily agreeing because just I tend to see things that maybe someone else is not seeing, and they're like, what are you talking about, Carmela? But I like to voice my opinion on it anyway. So with that, I'm going to, the only way I can show you the TV is to turn this, and I will be starting and ending the clip and just commenting on it. And I'm going to turn this so I can see your comments, hopefully. And we're just going to turn it like this. So this is the beginning of the clip. This is a really good picture of Nancy Guthrie. Now she's probably 20 years younger in this picture, so you have to know she's a lot older. She's 84 years old now, but that's a previous picture, and but you can see her eyes are blue, and we can see her nose does not have a deep curvature at all. It's a straight nose, and it's a small nose, blue eyes, and her hair still parted, you know, way over on the side. So, but let's take a listen to what's going on here. Maybe it's not going to let us. Maybe I was in there too long. Oh, sorry.
Alert. New information emerging in the case of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance as the desperate search now enters day 6.
Law enforcement is raised.
So, I kind of want to keep stopping this because I want to show you a picture of what she looks like more or less now.
New information emerging in the case of Nancy Guthrie's disappearance as the desperate search now.
This is more what she looks like probably now. She's 84 years old, so her eyes are not as blue, you can see there. Okay.
Enters day 6.
Law enforcement is racing against the clock, with the FBI confirming the first deadline from an alleged ransom note has expired, and the next deadline set for Monday.
So Arizona investigators say they believe the 84-year-old is still out there as the Guthrie family now shares a second video addressing any possible captor. Here's that message from Nancy's son, Cameron, asking for proof of his mother still being alive.
Okay, so Cameron, the son, is going to speak. He is from Vermont.
Watch.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
And we're still waiting. We have Fox team coverage right now on the ground in Tucson. Fox News contributor, retired NYPD inspector Paul Morrow is live in front of the Pima County Sheriff's Office. But we begin with Alicia Cunha, who's right outside the home where Nancy was taken. Alicia.
Good morning, Brian. Some of the most significant information authorities gave to reporters yesterday was that timeline, which began on Saturday at 5:32 p.m. when
So check out the timeline. She's going to give very specifics, and it really does speak to that whoever did this really was familiar. I'm just going to preface this with one thing. They will tell you that they believe that the predator or the person who kidnapped her was inside the house. Something occurred to me because they're finding, and they'll go over this, they found the blood outside at the front door. They don't say if they found blood inside the house. However, somebody made one of the news commentators on another clip made a comment that the blood spatter that is on the front step may have occurred because somebody was holding her and they turned around to shut the door. I don't think that is, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. They turned around to shut the door. I feel like what happened is they actually, were at the door, somehow got her attention, and she opened the door, and there was somehow an attack. That's what I'm thinking. I could be totally wrong. I probably am, but let's listen to the details here.
Nancy Guthrie took an Uber to her family's home for dinner. At 9:48 p.m., a family member drops her back at home, evidenced by the garage door opening at 9:48 and then closing 2 minutes later. Then at 1:47 Sunday morning, her doorbell camera disconnects. At 2:12, the sheriff says software detects a person.
Okay, check this out, guys. I don't know if you can see, this is super interesting. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm just, she's going over it, but I'm going to read this because look how they laid this out. They're asking for public's help. And, typically you think, okay, well, everyone's going to be looking in Arizona. But I say, because there is a connection here in Vermont, all of us should be really, really alert. But look, 5:32, as she said, Nancy, 32 p.m. on Saturday, so it's the evening. She goes home, the garage door closes at 9:50 p.m. Or, I'm sorry, she travels to her family's home for dinner at 5:32, and then she's dropped off at home, and the garage door closes at 9:50. Now, why they're looking at, you hear things in the media right now that they're looking at the other sister's husband, the son-in-law. So, but here they have evidence that the garage door closed at 9:50. He dropped her off. So, I heard that the reason they're looking at, like, they impounded the car and they took the car for evidence, is protocol. Why is it protocol? Because he, in fact, was the last known person to have seen her. So that's just process of elimination. It does not mean that that is who they think did something. It is because they are the very last people who saw her. And that would be in any case. It's a given. So Sunday at 2, we're going to put this back on here. Sunday at 2 o'clock, 2:12 a.m., software detects a person on the camera. No video available, no subscription, but the software detects a person. I'm going to explain that because I actually know what that's about. When you set up a camera, because I have a camera, if it's set up halfway, in other words, everything's connected, you applied for your app, but you didn't finish the process of setting up the camera, it will still, believe it or not, detect. Mine will detect movement. It will detect the movement. And for a split second, there may be an image, but it doesn't, what they call, save it, which is such a shame because they actually, camera detected something or someone. So that's what that means. So 11:56 a.m., the family checks. I don't think they mean a Oh yeah, they do mean AM. The family checks on Nancy. That's what I mean. 12:15 p.m. the patrol arrives. So they were there like within 15 minutes of getting this info. 9:48. Oh, they're just giving more down here. I'm sorry. 9:48 p.m. The family drops Nancy off and the garage door opens. They're going up and down. 9:50. The door closes. 1:47 a.m. The doorbell camera disconnects. So somebody physically disconnected the doorbell camera, and then the software detects a person, but no videos available. 2:28 a.m. Nancy's pacemaker app shows disconnection from the phone. So that person, where some people are saying this person was in there for like 45 minutes, but that's not 45 minutes. At 1:47, they're still outside because that camera was outside. So probably they're trying to figure out how to get in the home, if they did enter the home. So this is maybe more evidence where they entered the home is at 2:28. So I would not say they're in the home that whole time. And I would even question that possibly she opened the door, something disturbed her, or maybe she rang the doorbell, and whoops, I just lost the I don't know why that went off. The TV just shut itself off, guys. I find that the TV actually disconnect. Look, my TV just shut off while we're talking. So I'm going to try to put it back on. Sometimes that does happen. Oh, that's kind of a little scary, huh? So let's see here. There we go. Okay.
This says to be the most powerful smartwatch.
And of course
the
we
world
got a
has ever
commercial.
seen. Just
But
follow
yeah,
the
so
rules.
I mean, I'm sure they're asking like all these questions. So let's see if we can get back on here. So let's listen to this.
Later, Nancy's pacemaker app disconnects from the phone. At 11:56 that morning, the family checks in on her after she didn't show up for church. 12:03, they call 911. At 12:15, the first patrol arrives. Investigators say they have talked to that Uber driver from Saturday, and that camera that detected a person didn't have a paid subscription, so the images weren't saved. The FBI also says they're taking the ransom note that was sent to TMZ and local TV stations in Tucson seriously. The FBI confirmed there were two deadlines in the ransom note. The first one passed at 5 p.m. yesterday. That came with specific demands. If not met, a second deadline kicks in for this Monday. Agents are back out going door to door in both Nancy's neighborhood and that of her daughter Annie. The sheriff gave this assessment of where he believes things stand.
Right now, we believe Nancy is still out there. We want her home. Our department, the sheriff's department, along with all of our partners at the FBI, have been working around the clock. And we just want her home and find a way to get to the bottom of all of this.
The FBI has brought.
Okay, before they talk about the ransom a little bit more, so they're saying they believe that she's out there. So remember, that could be anywhere. If these are professionals, and they talk about this in a little bit, so we're going to listen to that. They're alluding to maybe they're professionals because they've covered up the tracks of this ransom note so well. So take a listen.
In a critical response team from Quantico, they have a team also processing social media evidence and phone and digital footprints. Back to you.
All right, thanks so much. Let's bring in Fox News contributor, retired NYPD Inspector Paul Morrow, who is live in the Sheriff's Department over in Tucson. Paul, your reaction from what we've known, what we find out overnight, what do you expect them to focus on today? Well, one of the things that the sheriff said at that press conference yesterday is that they're not going to give any more press conferences unless they have something concrete. He characterized where they are in the current stage of the investigation as the analysis phase. That is to say, they're waiting for data to come back and they're waiting for the analysis of the data that they have. That tells me that they're looking very hard at a lot of digital stuff. They probably, if I had to guess, have gotten into her.
This is her home right here that they're showing. You see how big her home is? Right there.
Phone by now. They probably have dumped some other stuff. Maybe her Wi-Fi server. She has a computer in her house. They're looking for anomalies. And let's remember something else, Brian. According to the time.
Look also at the driveway. Okay, this is why I was saying for any reporter to go all the way up there to the steps is actually going on to private property. So I don't know why they would do that, unless they have permission. But that is a huge, I don't even know how big the front, if that's just the front yard from the street or what. But anyway, he's saying how the FBI is going through the computers.
Something that jumped out at me, there's a 41-minute gap from where you can probably say, the intruder is in the house and then she leaves because that's when her pacemaker disconnects from that app. 41 minutes is a long time for an abduction. What was going on? Was this actually a burglary gone bad? Was somebody looking through the house and she woke up? It strikes me that 41 minutes, a potential digital footprint, that kind of thing, I think is what they're pulling out now. We may not know for a few days at least.
Yeah, Paul, it looks like the son-in-law was the last one to see her, and he dropped her off. According to reports, they played games. Her daughter, who's also married to the guy who dropped her off, they played games. They had dinner. He took his mother-in-law back home, dropped her off, watched her go in the house. Have they tracked his car? Have they been able to? Because I know in some cases, if it's a updated car, they can find the car through GPS. If they tracked that. And also, where's her car? Did her car ever leave? And what do you know about this white van that was found? The neighbor saw a white van parked outside on the street that was unmarked.
So far we haven't heard any further about the white van. Relative to her car, my understanding is that it hadn't left. As we've heard, she had an Uber driver who had been driving her around, at least during the day of, and you have to suspect that was a fairly regular thing. That's another digital thing that they're almost certainly going to be checking out. They can go to Uber, but they can also go to the credit card company. They should do financials. They should see if she's had any unusual.
So she took an Uber to her family's home for dinner, and upon going home, they drove her home. But that white van that they're talking about, that's a new critical piece of information. And a lot of times I don't know if you know this, but white vans, and I'm not saying this is what it is at all, but there are, I don't know if they still do this, but I did learn this in the past, that a white van may be used by the correctional departments to transport people. In other words, prisoners, and they are unmarked, and when you look at them, the reason you know it's a correctional facility is if you look through the van, like you look at it, you may see the bars between the front seats and the back seat. I'm not saying that's the type, I'm just explaining, it sounds like it was that type of van because they're saying an unmarked white van. So, okay, I find that interesting, or a little suspect there if the kidnapper, if that was the kidnapper's van. But look at the driveway we just looked at of this woman's house. I guess they wouldn't want to bring the van into the driveway because then everyone would say, oh, we saw it in the driveway. But it was parked across from her house. So I find that very interesting.
Pattern of payment to somebody. She was having some work done on the house, something like that. Relative to the brother-in-law's car, because he was the last person. Yeah, most cars these days do have some version of a GPS. Remember the Alex Murdaugh case? One of the things that sunk Alex Murdaugh was that they were able to track the movement of the car where he said it had not been, doing things he said he had not done. And so that was one of the pieces of evidence against him. I'm very sure that they will be going hard at that, unless it's an older car.
Okay, so look at, they show this picture. And I'm just going to say something here. Right here. They're not saying who it is. But it looks like it's probably a family member. And I just want to say that the way they're presenting, and you have to be careful when you're listening to media, the way they're presenting this, like I said, when it's the last person who has seen anyone who ends up unalive, this is protocol. They check everything out very thoroughly. It does not mean that he is a primary suspect. It does not mean that.
Well, unless you're dealing with somebody who's very, very cyber savvy, but we don't know that the brother is a suspect, brother-in-law, I should say, is a suspect in any way, shape, or form. Here, the sheriff made it very, very clear they're not ruling anyone in or they're ruling anybody out. And that's one of the issues here. They have to cast a very wide net. The problem I see...
Oh, wait, I want to show you the house. Hold on a second. Hopefully I don't go too far back here.
Made it very, very clear they're not ruling anyone in.
Okay, check this out. So, I don't know if you can see this. See? This is the driveway. Here's the house. So, that driveway leads right here to the street. So, the van was parked somewhere on this street, it sounds like. So, if she was let out of that house, they had to bring her all the way down the couple of stairs there, down this driveway. So I'm sure they're looking in the brush here because for footprints, things dropped. My take on it, she's 84 years old. I'm 66 and a half. And I could tell you right now, if someone tried to drag me out that door, the very first thing I'd be doing is trying to drop something, like anything. If I had something in my pocket, anything. And piece of jewelry, if I had something on, I'd be trying to throw it on the ground for evidence. Okay, I just would do that. And so I hope, and I would assume, of course, that they checked everything in here. And, you know, maybe they dragged her out that way, who knows? But maybe they get footprints from the person here, because you see the steps, if they were parked here. I don't know, maybe they could get some footprints. So let's finish listening to these guys.
They're ruling anybody out. And that's one of the issues here. They have to cast a very wide net. The problem I saw yesterday, that was very subtle, was that at one point, very casually, the sheriff said, we're going to be putting up billboards around the county to try to get more.
Look at the property associated with her house, guys. I don't know if you can see it, but this is the house over here. House, pool, little sheds. This is the other side of the house. This is all the property here. That's very interesting. There's a lot of it. Okay, sorry about that. Here we go.
Tips and to sensitize people to the situation. You don't put up billboards if you feel that you're close.
That's so true. Paul, we got some breaking information last night with Harvey Levin on Sean's program. And he talked about the letter sent in. It was through email and the sophistication. I want to play this out and then get your reaction.
My IT team has been hard at work on this, and I know the feds have. I don't think they're going to be able to figure out where this email originated from. I know the Bitcoin address is real. So what I will say is this.
Check this out, guys. Do you see it? Do you see this? I don't know if anybody, let's check that out. Is that a person right here? Is this a person? Can you see it, guys? Let me bring this up closer. If you stop your video afterwards and kind of zoom in on this. Like, they're not saying what this is. Look. This to me, look, I'm just going to tell you what this looks like to me. This looks like a person wearing shorts, first of all. Because, and I say that, I could be wrong. Yeah, it might be wrong because that might be the shadow. That's, I'm sorry, that is a shadow of the window behind them. Okay, so this is a person. That's definitely a person. That must be the image that they caught. Can you guys work that out? Can you, anybody see that? What does that look like to you? Can you see it? Now, me being an artist, first of all, this person is on a side, it's a side angle of the person. It looks to me like they're coming down and looking, like twisting. So they're twisting around, or they're coming down, twisting towards looking at the house. And I think the ring camera's still up there. Look at the door, guys. Oh, you can't see. So the door in this picture is ajar. That door right there is open, I'm going to tell you. And this does not look like two people to me, but it looks like an obscurity of one, which may mean it's two, or one possibly with one leaning on, no, because I only see one pair of feet, maybe. That is one weird photo, guys. Look, the door is open. That door, front door is open. And this looks like two persons. That is a person's head there. But I'm only seeing, unless this is, you know how you stand and like you're standing in such a position that the profile of the person, like you just took a picture of someone and you don't see two legs. You see one leg because one leg is directly behind the other leg. That's what this looks like right here. So I don't want to lose this because last time I was looking at this too long, it just went away. So that looks like what's maybe going on, because I think there's two heads there, one's behind another. And so this might actually be the, what do I want to say, the abduction in action that they actually caught, even though there was no subscription. Like I said, because my camera, that's the same thing that happened. I didn't completely finish setting it up, and it was still capturing a picture, but it only captured it temporarily, and then it would go away. That's what happened. They actually caught the abduction on camera. That's what that is, guys. I think, I'm not a professional, but I'm saying that sure looks like that's what's going on there. So, okay, let's listen to what he's saying.
This is not a letter that was thrown together in a couple of minutes. It is a very specific, well-organized, layered letter that really lays things out. This is not AI. You know, if an English teacher were to look at the structure and the grammar and everything else, I think they would have no notes. So this is somebody, it's not a crazy person who's writing this. I mean, they may be crazy, but they have the capacity to make demands, say what they want, say what they don't want, and it's very, very structured.
So, Paul, in the letter, there's two deadlines there, and they want payment. And apparently, the link to Bitcoin is legitimate. So, why wouldn't
I want to say one more thing. The person who, if that image that we just saw that the camera captured, it looks to me like I said two people. If that, with the door ajar in the back of it there, if that is the abduction in action, the person is standing about almost a foot higher than her, and she was about 5'5". So this person is a good size, maybe close to 6 feet. That's something they're going to get from that picture, if that's a picture
family pay
of that in action.
Well, I think right now the real conundrum about that letter is that it provided no means of contact with the perpetrators. I've done a lot of ransomware cases, and there are always at least two pieces of software that are involved here. That the malevolent software that penetrates the system and seizes it, but then there's a follow-on piece of software that's used for clandestine communication, lack of a better term, safe communication, better way to put it. The perps know how to communicate so that it's completely untraceable. And that's a whole separate piece of computerware, for lack of a better term. And in this case, it's not there. You also seem to have an English speaker. Now, look, AI is awfully good. You know, AI can write. It sounds just like an English writer. So I don't know, you know, how much weight we can put in that. But that said, assuming it is an English writer, the fact that it's well structured and everything else, to me, the fact that there's no way to get a hold of them, because of course you're not going to pay until they give you the protocols for how to hand her back, because you don't know who you're dealing with, and you may have one shot at this. If you pay the whole ransom and then the real people come forward and you're out of money, you got a real problem. So I got to say, I also, the real dispositive thing here is what is in the letter, because there's been a lot of disparate reporting. What is in the letter that can serve as a proof of the fact that they were in that house? You know, there's stuff about the floodlight, the watch. You know, remember, there's images of her wearing the watch online. And that's one of the things I would be doing, LJ, by the way. Those images of her online, I've seen at least one of her with Savannah. I would get my tech guys and hammer that website. Who's been hitting that website? Can you identify any out-of-country IPs that have been hitting that website? Somebody hitting it continuously recently? Stuff like that to try to contextualize this letter to see if it's legit. Because without something that really tells you she was in that house, there's no way you can pay this ransom, because there's no way to confirm you're going to get her back.
So what do you think about Harvey Levin saying he believes that person's still in the area, or certainly from the area? And one indication was because they contacted a local affiliate in Tucson that, you know, if you're an international person, you wouldn't think local.
Yeah, you know what conundrum there, Brian, and you know, we were talking to Jesse about this last night. What is the gamesmanship relative to who they contacted? Because you have that metric that you're talking about, but then you have TMZ. And the outlier here is obviously Savannah's network itself. Wouldn't that be who you contacted here? Instead, they went to TMZ. That argues somebody who maybe is not that familiar, at least with the national landscape. So, you know, there are elements of unsophistication in this thing that make you say, you know, even if it's somebody who is smart, doesn't really seem to have their act together. Because let's say if the letter is real, why no protocols, as I just outlined? But if the letter is not real, then where is whoever has her in order to get paid, if this is in fact an abduction for ransom? So there's a lot of sort of counterfactuals blowing through this that argue whoever did it is not very organized. And let's remember something else, just in closing. I would argue that you almost certainly have more than one person. Is it possible it's one?
I'm just gonna comment on that, because kind of what jumps out at me on that is he's saying, why would this person go to TMZ and not go to Savannah's network? Well, think about that for a second. Think about just the horrific thing that they just did. If they are in fact, and I find it very hard to believe that whoever did this was not aware that Savannah is a celebrity. So she is a celebrity. And if the person knew that and did this horrible act of kidnapping her mom, in their mind they're like, oh, she's a celebrity, so yeah, I'm gonna get money. So there's how the ransom thing comes up. But the other side of it is they're not a fan. They just know she's a celebrity. They're not a fan because look what they did. That's why they went to TMZ. They purposely went to TMZ because they don't want any connection. They don't want anybody to know if they are in fact connected or close to or know of this celebrity. I'm telling you, this complicates it. It complicates it because it could be someone close to anybody in that family. It could be, yes, they always do that. They always look at the immediate family tree and stuff like that. But okay, let's finish. This is almost done. This is very interesting. Listen to this.
Absolutely, but history shows not only for the abduction, but for keeping the person secreted, because that is what you have to trade. I'm sorry to be so blunt. And so while somebody has to go out, do the communications, make sure that they're getting food, water, seeing what's being said, etc., communicating in a way that can't be observed from the location where you're essentially hiding out, somebody else has to stay there and keep an eye on her. So almost always in these things, you have 2-3 people involved. And that's one of the reasons why I'm surprised the reward is not higher, because you want to incentivize somebody who's around this thing to say, well, normally I would never give it up, but for $500,000, I'll give them all up. And, the nephew comes forward or something. A low reward here, in my estimation, and it was only bumped yesterday. I'm a bit surprised by that.
Paul, really quickly, why haven't we heard the 911 call? And who was it that went over to the house after she didn't show up for church to check on her?
I don't know. I haven't heard the live 911 call myself. And so I can't really say. I assume it was the sister, because obviously Savannah lives out of state, as does the brother. So the relationship, from what I understand, was closest to the sister, Annie, that lives here, and her brother-in-law, where we know that they had been together the night before having dinner. So my assumption is that she would have gotten the call. And here's another thing. Was the sister dialed into the watch? Because your watch can be, like my watch is kind of like a Fitbit. And so my wife knows if I did my exercise. So I'm wondering, did the sister get an alert? Did it alert on her watch? Did she have a watch? I'm curious about that. And that's another sort of digital metric that
For Life 360, we're all on Life 360, so I can see where everyone in the family
You have a choice to share, right?
Yeah.
Paul, you've been so great on this. Stay safe on the.
Okay, so again, they kind of, in a very indirect way, are throwing suspicion to the immediate family. So the only problem I have with that is I would really hope that they are also in that way making sure that the immediate family, who lives apparently only 10 minutes from the mom, are also not the next targets. I'm just saying they're looking at it one way, and it's, today it's pretty much common knowledge, the thing that they just brought up, that, for example, I have a Fitbit, and yes, it's something that another family member of mine can see if I exercised or where I am. They can figure out where you are with your Fitbit, right? It has a GPS and this and that. And many family members will give it to their older family members for safety and inspiration and motivation. And so it's common knowledge. So I don't know. I just find that very odd that they kind of throw in that little innuendo about the other, sister, Annie, so I would say, draw caution to that, because when you hear the things in media, my take on it is just looking at the location, that yes, it's probably someone super familiar with the geography of the place. So and tech savvy, obviously. And but I would say, yeah, maybe it was two people, because it looks like someone's. It looked to me in that shadow picture that we saw that there was a person. You could see a person's head kind of leaning like that, on a slant, and the larger person into the larger person, and the larger person was standing in a direct profile, so it looked like one leg. So if you look at that, tell me what you see, because I think that's super interesting. But anyway, so that is the update on Savannah Guthrie, who is on a celebrity on the Today Show. She's a news anchor on the Today Show. Her brother, why are we covering this? Because her brother Cameron Guthrie is a Vermonter. He's here in Vermont. He lives in Vermont. He's a retired F-16, and all those who live in Vermont, you know about the F-16s over in South Burlington Airport. They're parked over there, and they fly over all the time. So he's an F-16 fighter pilot, and so he is a celebrity, in his own right. He's very high ranking, status in the military. So, I'm sure they're looking at the circle of everyone. Okay. So anyway, with that, I just thought I would, in my own little way, on my own little channel, because this is about Vermont, sun and shade, I figure I kind of keep you updated. I found some of that information very, very, very interesting. I do throw shade at them constantly in such a preliminary, raw manner, talking about the brother-in-law, because they don't have evidence of that. They need to be very careful how they start rumors and how they throw things out there. To me, anyway, it's obvious that this was someone that Nancy Guthrie did not know, because there was some harm done to her, obviously, from the evidence of blood. If it was someone she knew, she would go with them, especially if it was her daughter 10 minutes up the street. She would just go with them, and she would just, you know what I mean? She would go. Because I just look at myself as a mom. I don't care what time of night it is. If for some reason one of my kid, or the kid closest to me especially, came to me and said, hey, gave me some reason I needed to leave, I would just go. So I don't believe it's an immediate family member. I'm just, going by what I think in a logical way. I don't believe that. I believe she was taken by surprise, and that they did all of these things, and then she did give a fight, because she knew that she did not know this person, and that's what I think occurred. That's what I think occurred. Anyway, so with that, there's this ransom note. We'll keep an update on the ransom note, and I'll try to just kind of be really brief with you on the subsequent videos that we do to update this. But if you have any comments, or you'd like to just jump on board, support the channel, Vermont Sun and Shade, come on. And we do all kinds of clips here. This is not just true crime, although because this is of Cameron is, one of our residents here in Vermont. I do think it's super important to keep an update here, because if, for example, by some long shot, it's someone who knew, let's say, knew him and learned, or even didn't even know him, but knew of him. Let's just say that. And learned that, you know, his sister is, oh, the celebrity and this and this. You never know. You never know. Some people who are not well, how they're thinking, okay? And, you know, we're here in Vermont, they're in Arizona, but I've known about a half a dozen people just alone over the past 50 years I've been here. It's like, hey, I'm moving to Colorado, or I'm moving to Arizona, or, you know, I'm moving out west because it's so cold here. So, or they go out and visit and they know the place. So it's not that far-fetched to think that it could be someone from another state. You know what I mean? But the white van is really what gets my attention, because I immediately associate an unmarked white van with the Department of Corrections, because that's exactly the type of van that they use, at least here in Vermont. And some of you may know that, some of you may not know that. But anyway, with that, I hope you have a beautiful day, have a safe day. Remember, stay warm, stay in tonight, because they have the severe weather warning dropping below 0 tonight, Friday night, from 6 p.m. to tomorrow, Saturday at 1. If any more developments occur, and I think it's really interesting to share, I will share more with you. So with that, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.